Boutique manager slaps poor girl, unaware her father is a billionaire CEO. Emily Hamilton adjusted the sleeve of her blue cardigan and glanced at her watch as she walked along the city's upscale shopping district. She had 2 hours before meeting her father for lunch, plenty of time to find something suitable for the charity gala this weekend. Unlike most 18-year-olds with her resources, Emily preferred simplicity. Jeans, t-shirts, and practical shoes had always been her uniform of choice. Her father often teased that she was the only billionaire's daughter who shopped at department stores. Richard Hamilton had raised Emily with an awareness of their privilege, but also a deep appreciation for humility. After her mother died when Emily was 8, Richard had devoted himself to ensuring his daughter grew up grounded despite their extraordinary wealth. "Money doesn't define character," he'd often tell her. "How you treat others does." Emily lived by those words, working quietly at the Hamilton Foundation, where she managed several education initiatives without fanfare. Few of her colleagues knew she was actually the foundation's largest individual donor. She preferred it that way, being judged for her work rather than her last name. As she passed Maison Elegance Boutique, a midnight blue gown in the window caught her eye. Emily paused, drawn to its elegant simplicity. The charity gala was for the children's hospital wing her foundation had helped fund, and while she usually avoided extravagance, something about this dress felt right for the occasion. Taking a deep breath, Emily pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The boutique's interior was intimidating. Crystal chandeliers sparkled from high ceilings above gleaming marble floors. The air smelled of expensive perfume, and soft classical music played through hidden speakers. Only a handful of items hung on each rack, spaced far apart like precious museum pieces. Emily moved quietly through the store, her sneakers squeaking slightly against the polished floor. A few well-dressed customers browsed nearby, occasionally glancing at her with curiosity or disdain. At the back of the store, Emily found the blue dress from the window display. It was even more beautiful up close. She reached out carefully to touch the fabric, admiring the craftsmanship. "Excuse me!" a sharp voice barked from behind. "What do you think you're doing?" The words cut through the quiet store like a knife. Emily turned to find a tall, thin woman glaring at her with open disgust. The woman's hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her black designer dress and red-soled shoes screaming wealth and status. A nameplate on her blazer read, "Claire Bennett, Manager." "Hello," Emily smiled warmly, unaffected by the woman's hostile tone. "I'm interested in this dress. I'd love to try it on if that's possible." Claire's eyes moved slowly up and down Emily's body, taking in every detail of her simple clothes, messy hair, and the worn tote bag slung over her shoulder. Her lips curled into a sneer. "I don't think we have anything in your price range," Claire said, practically spitting the last words. "Perhaps you might feel more at home at the department stores in the mall, or maybe a thrift store would be more appropriate for someone like you." Several nearby customers turned to stare, some looking embarrassed by Claire's behavior, others watching with morbid fascination. Emily's cheeks flushed, but her voice remained steady. "I'm interested in this specific dress, the blue one from the Sustainable collection. I'd like to try it on, please." Claire stepped directly between Emily and the dress, physically blocking her from touching it again. "This piece costs more than you probably make in 3 months. I'm trying to save you from embarrassment." By now, the entire boutique had fallen silent. All pretense of shopping had stopped as everyone watched the confrontation. A young woman with dark hair had taken out her phone and was recording the scene, her expression troubled. "I understand the price," Emily said calmly, "and I'd still like to try it on." Claire threw her hands in the air dramatically. "Are you deaf or just stupid? Let me make this perfectly clear. She spoke slowly, as if talking to a child. You cannot afford this dress. You do not belong in this store. You are wasting my time when I should be helping real customers. An older woman with silver hair gasped loudly. That's completely uncalled for. How dare you speak to anyone that way? Claire shot the woman an icy glare. Mrs. Abernathy, I assure you I'm simply maintaining our standards. This person clearly doesn't belong here. Emily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. I believe I have as much right to be here as anyone else. If you're unwilling to help me, I'd like to speak with another employee, please. Claire's face transformed with rage. Her professional mask shattered completely, revealing something ugly underneath. How dare you! She shouted, her voice echoing off the marble walls. You question my authority in my store? I've been in this business for 15 years. I can spot time wasters and frauds from a mile away. Claire stepped closer to Emily, jabbing a finger toward her face. You think you can walk in here looking like that and demand service? You think you deserve to be treated like our real clients? People like you make me sick, pretending you're something you're not. The entire store was frozen in shock. The woman filming had moved closer, capturing everything. Please don't speak to me that way, Emily said quietly. I'm just asking to be treated with basic respect. Respect? Claire shouted, her face contorted with fury. You want respect? Respect is for paying customers. Respect is for people who matter. What happened next occurred so fast that several witnesses later gave conflicting accounts. Claire lunged forward, grabbing Emily's arm with one hand and violently slapping her across the face with the other. The crack of the slap echoed through the store like a gunshot. The force knocked Emily sideways. She stumbled against a display rack, nearly falling to the floor. Her hand flew to her cheek, where an angry red handprint was already forming. Shocked gasps filled the air. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then the boutique erupted into chaos. Oh my God! Someone screamed. Did you see that? Another voice shouted. Someone call the police! Called a third. Mrs. Abernathy rushed to Emily's side, her face pale with shock. Are you all right, dear? Oh my goodness, she struck you. Claire seemed momentarily stunned by her own actions, but quickly tried to regain control. She was threatening me. She became aggressive when I asked her to leave. That's a complete lie, shouted the young woman who'd been filming. I have everything on video. She never threatened you. 2 security guards from the shopping complex burst through the door, having been alerted by a customer who ran out during the commotion. What's happening here? One demanded, looking between the furious Claire and Emily, who stood trembling with Mrs. Abernathy's arm around her shoulders. This woman assaulted me, Emily said clearly, her voice shaking but determined. She slapped me across the face for trying to try on a dress. She's trespassing, Claire countered desperately. I asked her to leave repeatedly. That's not true, said Mrs. Abernathy firmly. I witnessed the entire thing. This young woman was shopping peacefully when this person, she pointed at Claire, verbally abused her and then physically attacked her, for no reason except some twisted prejudice about how a customer should look. The security guard turned to the young woman still holding up her phone. Do you have this on video? Every second of it, she confirmed, including the assault. I want to press charges, Emily said suddenly, surprising even herself. She had no right to put her hands on me. Claire's face drained of all color. You can't be serious. Do you know who I am? I am the manager of the most exclusive boutique in this city. And do you know who I am? Emily asked quietly. Something in her tone made Claire pause, uncertainty flickering across her face. "No, you don't know," Emily agreed. "And that's exactly the problem. You shouldn't have to know someone's name or bank account balance to treat them with basic human dignity." With that, Emily turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high, despite the throbbing pain in her cheek and the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "Miss," called one of the security guards, "should we call the police?" Emily paused at the door. "That won't be necessary. I'll handle this another way." As Emily stepped outside, she was unaware that the young woman's video was already being uploaded to social media with the caption, "Disgusting. Watch this boutique manager slap a customer she thought was too poor to shop there. Share this now. Hashtag retail abuse. Hashtag classism is real." Within hours, it would be viewed by millions of people around the world. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Hamilton was reviewing company reports in his home office when his assistant Jeffrey burst through the door, face pale. "Sir," Jeffrey said, his voice urgent, "there's something you need to see immediately. It's about Emily." Richard's head snapped up, instantly alert. "What's happened? Is she hurt?" "She was..." Jeffrey handed over his tablet. "This video is going viral. It was taken less than an hour ago." Richard took the tablet and pressed play. For the first minute, his expression remained controlled as he watched his daughter being humiliated by the boutique manager. But when Claire slapped Emily, something dangerous flashed in his eyes. The muscle in his jaw twitched, and his knuckles turned white against the tablet's edges. "Who is this woman?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. "Claire Bennett, manager of Maison Elegance on Fifth Avenue. The boutique is owned by the Lux Retail Group, the Morgenstern family." Richard handed the tablet back to Jeffrey with controlled precision. "Cancel everything on my schedule for the next week, then get Gerald Morgenstern on the phone immediately." "Yes, sir. What should I tell him it's regarding?" Richard's eyes were cold as winter. "Tell him I'm about to buy his company." As Jeffrey hurried out, Richard remained perfectly still, a predator planning his strike. His daughter had been raised to be kind and humble, to never use their wealth as a weapon against others. She volunteered at shelters, took the public transport like anyone else, and worked hard to be judged on her character rather than her father's bank account. But sometimes, Richard thought darkly, money and power needed to be used, not for revenge, but for justice. When Emily arrived home an hour later, Richard was waiting in the living room. One look at her still reddened cheek confirmed everything the video had shown. "Dad," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're home early." Richard crossed the room and gently tilted her face toward the light. The mark on her cheek had deepened to an angry red, with the clear outline of a handprint. "I saw what happened," he said softly. Emily's forced composure crumbled. "The video? It's online?" "It's everywhere," Richard confirmed. Tears filled Emily's eyes, tears she had refused to shed in the boutique or on her walk home. "It was so humiliating, Dad. All those people watching. I just wanted to try on a dress." Richard pulled his daughter into a tight hug, feeling her shoulders shake as she finally broke down. "I know, sweetheart. I know." "I didn't tell her who I was," Emily said between sobs. "I never use your name or our money to get special treatment." "And that makes me prouder than anything else," Richard said, stroking her hair. "But what happened today wasn't about you. It was about her, a person who thinks it's acceptable to judge and mistreat others based on appearances." Emily wiped her eyes and looked up at her father. "Please don't make a big public scene about this. I don't want lawyers and press conferences and everyone talking about poor little rich girl got slapped." Richard smiled grimly. I would never do anything to embarrass you, Emily. You know that. Something in his tone made Emily narrow her eyes. What are you planning? Nothing that should concern you right now, Richard said, kissing the top of her head. Go rest before dinner. We'll talk more then. But as Emily left the room, Richard was already formulating a plan, one that would deliver justice without the public spectacle his daughter feared. Meanwhile, the video continued spreading online like wildfire. It had been viewed over 20 million times, covered by major news outlets, and sparked heated debates about retail discrimination and class prejudice. Celebrities had shared it, condemning Claire's behavior. Maison Elegance had shut down all their social media accounts after being flooded with angry comments. No mainstream media had identified Emily by name yet, though speculation was rampant about whether she was actually related to that Hamilton family. 10 days after the slapping incident, Richard called Emily into his study. I have something for you, he said, sliding a thick envelope across his desk. Emily picked it up warily. What's this? Open it. Inside was a legal document with portions highlighted in yellow. Emily's eyes grew wider as she read each line. She looked up at her father in disbelief. You bought the boutique? She gasped. The entire Maison Elegance? Richard leaned back in his chair, looking extremely pleased with himself. I did. But Why? How? That's such an extreme reaction. The Morgensterns were desperate to sell after the video went viral, Richard explained. Their whole retail group was losing millions in stock value every day. I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Emily shook her head in amazement. Dad, this is crazy. I don't know anything about running a boutique. Look at the ownership line, Richard said, pointing to a specific paragraph. Emily looked closer and saw her own name listed as the sole owner of Maison Elegance. Her mouth fell open. You bought it. For me? I did, Richard confirmed, satisfaction evident in his voice. You don't need to run it day to day. We'll hire people for that. But as the owner, you have complete control over the staff, the policies, everything. Emily stared at him as understanding dawned. So I could fire her, Claire. You could do whatever you want, Richard said, carefully. That woman assaulted you on camera, Emily. In the real world, that means termination, lawsuits, and possibly criminal charges. But now, the decision is entirely yours to make. Emily looked back at the documents, mind racing. Part of her wanted nothing to do with Claire Bennett, ever again. Another part recognized the opportunity her father had given her, a chance to respond to what happened on her own terms. After a long moment, she nodded. Okay, I know what I want to do. 2 weeks after the slapping incident, Claire Bennett arrived at Maison Elegance, only to find the boutique unexpectedly closed. A sign on the glass door read, Private event, by invitation only. Puzzled, Claire used her key to unlock the door. Inside, the lights were dim, and the usual soft music that filled the boutique was gone. Hello? She called out, her voice echoing slightly. Is someone here? Good morning, Miss Bennett. Startled, Claire spun around and nearly lost her footing. Seated gracefully in one of the boutique's elegant chairs was a woman she instantly recognized, Emily Hamilton. She was dressed immaculately in a high-end designer suit, her hair perfectly styled, her jewelry subtle yet clearly expensive. You! Claire gasped, instantly recognizing the woman she had slapped. Fear replaced the shock on her face. What are you doing here? How did you get in? Emily stood slowly. I have a key. Several, actually. This is private property, Claire stammered, backing away. You need to leave before I call security." "That won't be necessary," said a deep male voice behind her. A tall man in a suit stepped out from the manager's office, carrying a leather portfolio. "Ms. Bennett, I'm Andrew Marshall. I'm an attorney representing Hamilton Enterprises. We are the new owners of this boutique." Claire stared at him in confusion. "New owners? What are you talking about? This store belongs to the Morgensterns. They own Lux Retail Group." "Not anymore," Andrew said calmly. "At least not this particular boutique." He handed Claire a document. Maison Elegance was purchased last week by Hamilton Enterprises, more specifically, by Miss Emily Hamilton, personally. Claire's hands shook as she stared at the document. "Hamilton," she whispered, looking up at Emily with dawning horror. "You really are Richard Hamilton's daughter, the billionaire?" "I am," Emily confirmed simply. Claire fell to her knees, the document slipping from her hands. "Oh my God, I had no idea. Please, Miss Hamilton, I never would have—" "Never would have what?" Emily interrupted sharply. "Treated me that way if you'd known I was rich, if you'd recognized my last name. That's exactly the problem." Claire began sobbing, mascara running down her cheeks. "Please, I understand now. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. But please don't fire me. This job is everything to me. I have bills, a mortgage." Emily studied the woman before her, now reduced from arrogant tyrant to begging on her knees. The power to destroy Claire's career, her reputation, her financial security, it was all in Emily's hands now. "Stand up!" Emily commanded. Claire scrambled to her feet, wiping ineffectually at her tear-stained face. "The woman you slapped 2 weeks ago wasn't Richard Hamilton's daughter," Emily said coldly. "She was just a person who wanted to try on a dress after spending her day helping homeless people. She deserved basic respect. Everyone who walks through those doors deserves that same respect." "Yes, absolutely," Claire nodded frantically. "I was horrible, inexcusably horrible." "It went beyond horrible," Emily continued. "What you did was assault. I could still press criminal charges if I wanted to." Claire's face drained of what little color remained. "Please don't. I'm begging you." "My father wanted me to fire you immediately," Emily said, watching Claire flinch at the words. "He wanted to make sure you never worked in retail again." "And what do you want?" Claire whispered, looking utterly defeated. Emily took a deep breath, considering her answer carefully. Revenge would be easy, but was it what she truly wanted? "I want change," she said finally. "I want this store, and you, to be better." Claire blinked in confusion. "You're not firing me?" "Not today," Emily replied, "but things will be different from now on." She gestured to Andrew, who produced another document. "This is a new company policy for all Maison Elegance employees. It requires treating every customer with respect and dignity, regardless of how they look or what they're wearing." Claire nodded quickly, hardly believing her reprieve. "Of course, I completely understand." "Additionally," Emily continued, "you'll be working with our HR department to create a training program on bias and ethical customer service. All staff will complete this training." "Yes, absolutely," Claire agreed, wiping away tears. Emily moved toward the blue dress still on display, the one she had wanted to try on that fateful day. "Finally, Maison Elegance will be partnering with the homeless shelter where I volunteer. We'll be providing professional clothes for women entering the workforce after experiencing homelessness. You will personally lead this program." Claire swallowed hard. Yes, I can do that." "One more thing," Emily said firmly. "I'll be checking on your progress regularly. If at any point I feel you're not genuinely committed to these changes, You will be terminated immediately. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear," Claire promised. "I won't disappoint you, Ms. Hamilton." Emily nodded once, then picked up her handbag. "Andrew will explain everything else. I'll be back next week to see how things are progressing." With those words, Emily walked out of the boutique, the click of her heels on marble echoing in the quiet space. Outside, the morning sun was bright, matching the lightness she felt in her chest. She hadn't sought revenge or humiliation for Claire, though both had been within her power. Instead, she had used her unexpected position of authority to create change, not just for herself, but for others who might have faced similar treatment. And that's the end of today's story. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more captivating stories. See you in the next one.